Okay, so have you ever felt like you were like a master planner? Like got all your calendars color-coded and to-do lists like perfectly crafted.
Uh-huh.
But then when it comes to actually like doing this stuff,
Yeah.
it kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
It's like you're so good at the setup, but the main event never happens.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we're talking about today, that whole phenomenon
Right.
of the perfectionist planner.
Yes. And we're going to unpack that with this article called The Perfectionist Planner When Planning Becomes Procrastination. So we're going to try to figure out if maybe you're caught in this trap.
Yeah.
And if so, like how to break free.
Yeah. And the article points out this illusion of the perfectionist planner.
Mm.
They might seem incredibly organized on the surface.
Yeah.
But it can be a bit deceptive.
I feel like I know a few people like that.
Oh, yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the article talks about is that illusion of progress, where the act of planning itself, like, creates a feeling of accomplishment, even though no real progress is being made towards the actual goal.
Right.
I've actually seen this a lot in my work.
Oh, right.
Like a researcher might spend weeks planning out the perfect experiment.
Yeah.
But then they struggle to actually start collecting data.
Oh, wow.
Because they're so afraid of messing it up.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's like the planning itself becomes a way to avoid the risk of failure.
Before we dive deeper, don't miss using our powerful anti-procrastination toolkits with 7 and more productivity tools all in one place. And for free, a notebook, projects manager with Kanban and subtasks, read later tool, accountability tool, habits tracker, Pomodoro timer, ambient sounds, and more. What is better than that to fight procrastination? Link in the description.
Yeah, it's almost like we trick ourselves into thinking we're moving forward just because we're busy,
Exactly. It's that busyness.
Yeah.
It can be very alluring because it masks the fear of failure or imperfection. Planning feels safe and controlled and predictable.
Right.
It's the doing that brings the uncertainty and the possibility of things not going according to plan.
I see.
And for the perfectionist planner, that can be really scary.
Okay, so that's kind of sneaky then. This illusion of progress. That's one way that planning can morph into procrastination. So what are some of the other traps the article highlights?
Well, one that's particularly common is using planning to avoid unpleasant tasks.
Ooh.
Those things on your to-do list that you keep pushing back because they just feel boring or difficult or maybe even a little scary.
Yeah, I think we all have those.
We all do to some extent.
Yeah.
And for the perfectionist planner, elaborate planning can become the ultimate avoidance strategy.
Okay.
Instead of facing the dreaded task head on, they convince themselves that they need a more detailed plan or more research or the perfect time to start.
Oh, yeah.
But deep down, they're just delaying the inevitable.
Right. It's like we build this elaborate fortress around a task, making it seem even more daunting than it actually is.
You got to, and I can even share a personal example of this.
Oh, okay.
I remember one time I had to give a presentation on a topic I wasn't particularly passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just, diving in and creating the slides, I spent days researching every possible angle, reading countless articles, creating the most intricate outline you've ever seen.
Wow.
And by the time I actually sat down to make the presentation, I was so overwhelmed and burnt out that I almost gave up entirely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that happens.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope.
So how do we know if we're falling into this planning trap? Are there any red flags we can look out for?
Yeah, for sure. The article actually gives some telltale signs that might, signal you're a planner procrastinator. Like, do you find yourself spending more time planning than actually working toward the goal?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe your to-do list is like a masterpiece of color coding and subcategories.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But you rarely actually check things off.
Okay.
And you constantly tell yourself, I just need a bit more preparation before I can start.
Oh, those are all hitting a little too close to home.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that it's not about eliminating planning altogether.
Right.
A certain amount of planning is actually essential,
Yeah.
For setting direction, breaking down large tasks into smaller steps.
Okay.
The issue arises when planning becomes an obstacle to action,
Nice.
a way to avoid the discomfort of uncertainty and the possibility of making mistakes.
So then how do we find that sweet spot between planning effectively and not getting bogged down in all the details?
That's the million-dollar question,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, the article actually provides some really practical strategies for breaking free from this perfectionist planner cycle.
Okay.
And one that I find incredibly helpful is the good enough principle.
Good enough. Okay, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so the core idea is that perfection is often the enemy of done.
Hmm.
Striving for perfection can set this impossibly high bar, which leads to paralysis and procrastination.
Right.
So instead, focus on creating something that is good enough to move you forward.
Oh, okay.
You can always iterate and refine as you go.
That makes sense, like aiming for a polished first draft instead of expecting like a perfect final product right off the bat.
Exactly, you got it.
Okay.
And that actually ties into another powerful strategy, which is starting with one small action.
Okay.
So instead of getting overwhelmed by a massive, intricate plan, pick one tiny, manageable task and just do it.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how much momentum you can generate just by simply taking that first step.
Yeah. It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly.
Sometimes we get so focused on the 1,000 miles that we forget about the power of that initial step.
Absolutely. And to help you take that first step and maintain that momentum, the article suggests using time sprints.
Okay, I've heard about this technique, I think.
Yeah.
Like set a timer and just go.
Exactly. Set a timer for 15, 20, or 30 minutes.
Okay.
And just focus on action. No planning, no overthinking, just doing.
So it's supposed to help break down mental barriers and boost productivity.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Time sprints create a sense of urgency and shift your focus from planning to execution.
Gotcha.
They also help to break down larger tasks into more manageable chunks so they feel less daunting.
So we've got the good enough principle for letting go of perfectionism, starting with one small action to build momentum and timed sprints for that laser focus.
You got it.
That sounds like a winning combo, but I'm still curious about those times when planning is genuinely helpful. I mean, surely there are situations where a well-thought-out plan is essential, right?
You're absolutely right. Planning isn't inherently bad. In fact, it can be a really powerful tool when used effectively.
Okay.
It's particularly helpful for clarifying goals, breaking down large tasks, and anticipating potential obstacles. It's all about finding that balance between preparation and action.
So it's more about using planning strategically rather than letting it become like a crutch or an excuse to delay action.
Exactly. Think of planning as a roadmap, not a blueprint.
Okay.
You need a general sense of direction, but you don't need to map out every single turn and detour before you start driving.
Oh, that's a great analogy. It helps to reframe planning as a tool for guidance and flexibility rather than a rigid set of rules.
Right.
It also kind of reminds me of something we talked about earlier, that fear of making mistakes.
Yep.
Like, we try to plan for every possible scenario just to avoid uncertainty, but then we end up creating more anxiety and actually hindering our progress.
That's such a great point. And it highlights a really crucial point, the importance of embracing imperfection. Mistakes are inevitable,
Yeah,
and they're often our greatest teachers.
you're right.
The key is to view them as opportunities for learning and growth, rather than as failures to be avoided at all costs.
So it's about shifting our mindset from fearing mistakes to like embracing them as part of the process.
Exactly.
Realizing that action, even imperfect action, is always better than staying stuck.
100%.
Okay, so to bring it all together, let's go back to that idea of taking one small step.
Yeah.
So, like, what can our listeners do, like, today to start breaking free from this perfectionist planner pattern?
Well, the article gives us some pretty good suggestions. One that really stands out, I think, is setting time limits for planning.
Oh, okay.
So instead of getting lost in a rabbit hole of research and, strategizing, give yourself a fixed amount of time, maybe like 30 minutes, to just kind of sketch out a basic plan.
Okay.
And then when that timer goes off, you commit to taking action, even if it feels incomplete.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, create a deadline for yourself almost.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
a self-imposed deadline to break free from analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
It forces you to prioritize and make decisions
Right.
without getting bogged down in that pursuit of perfection.
It reminds me of that whole concept of minimum viable product,
Oh, yeah.
in the startup world.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just better to launch a basic version and then iterate based on feedback
Right.
than to wait for that perfect product that might never materialize.
Exactly. And along those lines, the article also recommends finding an accountability partner,
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
someone who can help you stay on track. And maybe even more importantly, kind of gently call you out
Yeah.
when you're using planning as a procrastination tactic.
Yeah, because sometimes you need someone else to point that out to you.
It's so true. Having that external support can be so valuable.
It really can be.
It's like having a personal cheerleader and a reality check all rolled into one.
I like that.
So to kind of bring it all full circle, let's go back to the article's closing message, which really resonated with me.
Okay.
It basically emphasizes that, planning is just one step in the journey. And that true progress comes from taking action.
Right.
It encourages us to embrace that mindset of taking action.
Yeah.
Even imperfectly will yield more valuable learning and momentum
I see.
than endlessly crafting the perfect plan.
So it's really about shifting our focus then from planning to doing, from theory to practice.
You got it.
And that brings us to a question I want to pose to you, our listener.
Okay.
What is one small step that you can take right now, based on everything that we've talked about today, to break free from the planning trap and step into action?
It could be something as simple as setting that 30-minute timer to outline a plan for that project that you've been putting off.
Right.
Or maybe sending a quick text to a friend, asking them to be your accountability buddy.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this grand gesture, just a meaningful step in the direction of doing.
Yeah. And remember, this whole deep dive today was inspired by your desire to move from knowledge to action.
Exactly.
You've already shown us you value learning and gathering information.
That's right.
So now it's time to put that knowledge into practice.
We'd love to hear from you guys. What insights resonated with you? What aha moments did you have? And most importantly, what's that one small step you're going to take to turn those brilliant plans into some tangible progress?
Share your thoughts, your commitments, your triumphs, even your stumbles.
Yeah.
We're all in this together, figuring out how to translate those ideas into action and, make those dreams a reality.
Because the world needs your unique talents and contributions.
Yes.
And sometimes all it takes is that one small step to set everything in motion. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep making those dreams happen.